You are recognized.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members of the committee, for allowing us to come talk to you today about midwifery. As many of you know, midwifery is an issue that stimulates a lot of emotion. You hear a lot of things about midwifery. Many of those things may not be accurate. Many of those things may be accurate. But you should know that if a lady chooses to have a baby at home, any one of us could go in that room and help that lady have the baby. Very few of us in this room have any idea what's going on. Very few of us would be any help to this lady having a baby. But we would not be charged with anything for trying to help. Now you have somebody go in that delivery room that knows what they're doing or has some expertise, and we're going to charge that person with a crime. And I think that's unfortunate. Many of you may think that midwifery is a sideshow, but I can assure you it's not. I can assure you that women have the right to have a baby where they choose to have a right to have a baby. Whether we agree with it or not, whether I would have my wife do that or not, is not my choice. That's their choice. And my goal is to make sure that women that choose to do this, and let me say this, the women that choose to do this are not ignorant. That many are highly educated. They've done their homework. They've looked at the issue. They've studied the issue. They've talked to people. And they feel very comfortable having a child at home. Now, many of us may think that it's the only good place to have a baby is the hospital. I would argue with that. And I would say that these women have a right to choose where they deliver their child. Whether it be for religious reasons, whether it be for personal reasons, whatever the reason is, they have a right to do that. And if we as a government is going to force people to go to the hospital to have children, I think that's a far stretch for what the government is responsible to do. The other thing that I would suggest to you is, as we go through this, you're going to hear horror stories about things that happen. Okay? Many states across the country have had midwifery for a long time. There's no state out there wanting to get rid of midwifery. And so from that tells me there's not a problem with the issue. The other issue that is of concern to me is we cannot dictate to people where they choose to have their child. And I would ask this committee to be open, because I can tell you for every horror story that you hear, and they will play on your fears, I can give you a horror story that happened in the hospital. And I'm not condemning hospitals, I'm not condemning doctors, it's just the way it is. We can go to the one surgeon who carved his initials in the lady's chest, or in the lady's stomach recently. So I would ask you to look at this issue with an open mind. I would ask you to understand the needs of the women that choose to do this, and I would ask you to make that situation as safe as possible. And I think that would be to allow a midwife to be in that position. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Senator, I do have a question. We know there are certain areas in Alabama where the infant mortality rate exceeds maybe anywhere in the nation. I don't know. It's extreme. Would the option of midwifery, do you think that could have an impact on some of these remote areas that don't even have hospitals?
I think it would have a significant impact. And the reason I say this would be this. If you have a midwife in the room who is educated and understands what's going on, they can identify a problem early. Without that identification, it lingers and lingers and lingers until you get to a point where there's no point of no return. And so my idea of how it would work is, yes, there's going to be problems. There's going to be, just like in any delivery, there could be a problem. I would prefer to have somebody there that's educated to know that there is a problem starting and transfer that child and that mother to the hospital if it was needed. And I think that would definitely help the mortality rate.
Thank you. Response to any members of this committee have any?
It's not their certifications that makes it illegal for them to help in the home. It's the exchange of money. It's getting paid to help deliver.
You did have to ask the lawyer for that.
Isn't that correct?
I'll answer that.
Representative Hubbard, do you have something to contribute to this conversation?
I just wanted to know that.
Mr. Chairman, given that I am sponsoring 601,
Yeah, and
hope
I
have
apologize
something to
for, I should have recognized
But,
you first.
no. I'm glad you recognize Senator Busman because he was the initial sponsor in the Senate of this same bill. And it is a bill that he and I have worked on together, and Representative Ball called me in the hall this morning, and he carried the House sponsor of this, the House companion of Senator Busman's bill, and he expressed to me his regret that he was not able to move this bill through this committee, and was glad that we were able to have this public hearing here today. I told him we'd keep a seat on the front row for him if he could make it. But to answer the question about what actually makes it illegal, the statute at issue is, I'll get you the code section. Statute at issue is 3419.3. Okay, and 3419.3 recognizes a distinction between two types of midwives in Alabama. The first is a certified nurse midwife, or a nurse midwife rather, not certified. The second is a lay midwife. And going to Senator Busman's point, Alabama has perhaps the richest history of midwifery in the country, due in large part to your question, Mr. Chairman, the need for obstetrics and others, that sort of care, prenatal care in the rural parts of this state. Before the Hill-Burton Act passed in the 1950s, there were about 5 hospitals, as I'm sure you know, in Alabama. Hill-Burton put a hospital in 66 of the 67 counties, which expanded access to health care. Midwifery was filling that void up until about the 60s and the 70s. And so the code, as it was drafted back in the 70s with respect to the nursing section, dealt with midwifery in that way. It distinguished it between two classes. And as for, there's no reference in the code, Representative Henry, with respect to whether a midwife is paid, whether she is doing it of her own volition, of her own goodwill, whether it's her sister or a family member. There's no reference to any of that. So the prosecution is based solely on whether a midwife is a nurse midwife. And that's the reference in the code that we're trying to accommodate that issue. And that goes to Senator Busman's point. Does that answer your question? And we'll get into more of that, I'm sure.
Well, one of you do answer. I'm still a little confused, and Representative Hall, I'm coming to you.
Okay.
I'm still a little confused. If someone has had midwifery training, this is a statement you made, Dr. Busman, and then the other neighbor hadn't, and if one of these neighbors comes over to assist, it's a criminal offense, and if the other one comes over to assist, it's not a criminal offense.
And it goes
Representative Herbert, help me.
Sure. It goes to a national certification. There's a national certification for midwives around the country, and my understanding is that that certification is recognized in all but 9 states. I think there are 9 states that currently do not allow midwifery from someone with that certification alone. And so the distinction is, really it comes down to if a layperson, a neighbor, and I've got a story about the layperson who delivered a baby to a client of mine. If that person delivers the child, regardless of what the outcome of that delivery, that person has no fear of prosecution. However, if the person who helps assist with the delivery has training and a national certification, that person is then subject, Mr. Chairman, to criminal prosecution under the statute that we're looking to amend here.
Okay. I was the initial carrier of this bill, but it's nice to have that approach, and I do think that I hope at some point, maybe you as a miracle worker.
I'm not that.
But it would really be nice to if we could get the medical community. So that's where I am with my statement. What has been your response with the medical community? Because that's where the pushback is coming from, the medical association, from nurse practitioners, that group. So what is how are you dealing with that group? Because until they come to the table and act like they want to be a part of this discussion, you are not going to
Well,
be successful.
we've had several discussions with the medical association.
But has there been any movement?
And they are opposed to this, as you would understand. And my concern, and what I tried to do in the Senate, was try to get this bill to a certain point where I feel like they would have to come to the table and have that discussion.
Dr. Busman, does this bill then, does it deal with the legality or the liability?
No. All it does is decriminalizes the act.
Okay. Is anyone else? Yes, sir. Representative Nye.
Yes, I want to make sure I understand. This is kind of foreign to me. Okay. So training and certification, that's the trigger. Am I understanding? Was it just training, or it has to be training and certification?
Well, Representative Knight, it's not.
Representative Hubbard, you're correct.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Section 3419.3 specifically recognizes in a practice nurse midwife, okay, and says that it's unlawful for any person other than a licensed practice nurse, licensed professional nurse, to practice nurse midwifery. Okay, so it recognizes nurse midwifery. And in section B, it goes on to say, notwithstanding subsection A, nothing shall be construed to prevent lay midwives from practicing, because again, that's grandfathering in the lay midwifery services that were being provided up until 1976 when this law was adopted. So, Senator Busman may have
Representative Busman, Senator Busman, can you sort this out a little bit here? I got lost in the statute.
As you go through the public hearing today, you'll have people that can explain the differences.
Okay.
And that'll be very helpful to you as well, because I was confused when I first started trying to figure it
Is
out.
it,
You've got some in the hospital that can do it in the hospital, but can't do it outside in private.
Right, I'll buy that. Representative Patterson, do you have your hand
Quick
up?
question, how many states still prohibit this?
Nine.
9?
Representative Weaver?
I just have a general comment. You mentioned that during testimony we might hear some horror stories or some drama related to this. And I'd like for everybody who's testifying to remember that we do have pages in the room today. We don't want them to have that kind of experience in the State House. I'd like for you to limit your comments to things that are appropriate for all visitors. And if you feel like you can't, if you would give us the opportunity to maybe let our pages go somewhere else during that time.
Thank you, Representative Weaver. I think that's a good observation. And Representative Norgren, do you have a question or comment?
Just real quickly, I have a concern in that this would allow for both the lay and both the trained to do the midwifery, if that's how you pronounce it. I'm concerned about that segment soliciting that service in opposition to prenatal care or maybe the care of a physician. That's my concern, is the fact that they might have the opportunity to market a service, and if they're not trained in a nurse capacity, that might be not very good.
I think you'll find as you go through the discussion today at the public hearings, you'll very clearly understand the training that these midwives have, and I think that will answer your questions as far as whether they're able to do it.
Senator Busman, thank you.
Thank you
very much for helping us and kicking this off today and helping us get oriented on this thing.
And I just want to thank the chairman and the members of the committee for having this public hearing. This is an issue that I think needs the attention of this committee. And Mr. Chairman, I thank you for granting the public hearing today. I thank all the folks who came from far and wide of the state to be a part of this hearing. This bill, Mr. Chairman, and we've dealt with midwifery in this committee before. You'll remember last session we had a bill that dealt with it. This bill is not intended to analyze which is better, home birth or hospital birth. That's not what this bill does. This bill simply deals with the question whether in delivering a child, whether someone who has training and certification who assists with that delivery should be subject to criminal prosecution, where someone who has no training and no certification would not otherwise be subject to prosecution. I just want to give the committee a brief story. I have a client who worked at McDonald's, and she was pregnant working at McDonald's. And she went into labor unexpectedly on her shift and had to go into the bathroom. Her supervisor didn't take her seriously, thought she was malingering, not wanting to work. She went into the bathroom to deal with her pains. And she was 22, Mr. Chairman, so she had never given birth before. She didn't know what this was. The fry cook with whom she worked recognized this as labor, told the supervisor to call 911, and went into the bathroom and helped this young lady deliver this baby. And unfortunately, that baby did not survive the delivery. Mr. Chairman, the issue I have, and the issue I think this bill intends to address, is the fact that there had been in that restaurant a woman, or a man, I suppose, who had training in midwifery and who had a certification, perhaps sitting there with her two children eating Happy Meal, and had gone into that bathroom and helped that young lady deliver that child. And perhaps that child had survived. That woman would have helped at the risk and the threat of criminal prosecution. We're talking about the safety of children. There are stories of midwives who have risked prosecution and in fact have been prosecuted for stepping into the gap when there has been a woman delivering a child with complications and the life of the mother was at risk. And the midwife, in fact, saved the life of the mother. And yet she was turned around and prosecuted. Now, the complainant in that criminal prosecution was not the family. It was not the mother. It was the doctor, the OB for the woman, prosecuted the midwife. And she was prosecuted, and there's case law dealing with these types of prosecutions. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what this bill intends to do. It intends to address this issue where we have someone with training, someone with certification, who is able to assist in a birth, in a delivery, and to help protect the health and safety of the child and of the mother. And that person ought to be able to do so without the fear of criminal prosecution. And as the law stands right now, that person cannot. And the only person who can, and I believe Representative Henry mentioned this to me in passing, the only person who can is someone who has no training, who has no certification. So we're not here dealing with, members of the committee, whether home births are better than hospital births. My 3 children were born in the hospital. We're not here dealing with the extent to which we should license the practice of midwifery. We're not dealing with that. That's a complicated issue. We're dealing with a very simple issue here today, and that issue is whether someone who has training and certification in delivering children should be able to assist in that birth without the threat of criminal prosecution.
Mr. Chairman, you're talking about the difference in making this legal or not is due to their training. And I listened to your story. Why, if that is true, and that's pure what we're trying to do here, why would we not just change it to any contractual agreement? If there is no contractual agreement, why would that not be the trigger point rather than the training? That would solve the problem.
Well, that's not how the code is currently written. And like I was trying to explain earlier, and perhaps inartfully so, Mr. Chairman, the code recognizes the distinction between nurse midwives and lady midwives, and there's a historical basis for that. And all we're trying to do is we're trying to keep consistent with that distinction while eliminating the threat of criminal prosecution in the absence of a nurse midwife. And we can debate on another day, perhaps, whether nurse midwifery is effective, whether that's serving the rural parts of the state. That's not what we're dealing with here today. But I hear what you're saying about, the extent to which we turn it on a contract. I think that may be one way to get at this issue. The problem I see, just as an attorney, oftentimes you can have an oral contract. You can have an understanding. How do you base? I don't know of any other penal law where prosecution is based on the existence of contract.
that would prevent, though, the example that you gave with someone that was trained, whether they could help or whether they could not help, and surprise experience, I guess you might say, at the birthing of the child.
An emergency.
Emergency.
Correct. And that would deal with it, and Representative Leader, I would be more than happy, and I know you have experience in hospitals and in healthcare, and I would welcome your help in trying to tackle this issue, because I do believe it is an important issue for this committee to address, and I look forward to the testimony today. We'll have some of those testifying.
I'd like to get Representative Ford's question, comment, or whatever, and then I would like to get on with the public hearing, and if it's the will of the committee, we can have the sponsor after the public hearing field any questions that might come up as a result of the public hearing. Representative Ford, if you would, please, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I came from a large family. I was born back in the 30s. My other sister and brother were born, some were born in the 30s and the 40s. And we've always lived about midwife. And all of us still live. My older brother, they used to I got married when I was 19 years old. Me and my wife had five children. And her grandma was a midwife. And our next door neighbor was a midwife. So my whole family was living by a midwife. All of them still living and doing fine. I'm 75 years old. I ain't got a pain nowhere. I'm still living. So I don't understand why a woman can't choose what she want to have her baby.
They're slowing us down now. Anything else, Representative?
Again, when I say a large family, I mean large. I am, you're not going to believe it, I am the 14th child.
Wow.
14.
Mr. Chairman, he doesn't look a day over 62.
I represent Phoenix City too. In Booker County, they don't deliver babies. Got a firehouse there, they don't deliver babies. In New Falk, they don't deliver babies. You can go to Columbus or you can go to Dothan. And you know, if a woman say, well, look, when a husband decided to have a baby at home, that's their right. We just keep banging on women, telling them what to do. If they want to have a baby at home, a certified midwife, I should let them have a baby at home.
Thank you, Representative Ford.
Thank you,
And thank you, Representative Howard. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Grace Thomas. I'm a board-certified OBGYN and Assistant State Health Officer for Family Health Services with the Alabama Department of Public Health. I will cite 3 points as to why this bill is bad for Alabama. Point number 1, home delivery versus hospital delivery. Multiple studies have demonstrated that planned home birth is associated with a 2 to 3-fold increase in neonatal death overall. If transport is required, the risk of perinatal death is increased 8-fold. Access to immediate care is critical. If a patient hemorrhages, the umbilical cord prolapses, that is, it comes before the baby's head, or a baby's shoulders are stuck. Delay in care is responsible for the worst outcomes, and home deliveries do not meet the standards for patient safety. A recent study published in the CDC's, using the CDC's data of 14 million deaths in births. This study showed deliveries occurring in a hospital with a certified nurse midwife resulted in neonatal mortality of 3.2 deaths per 10,000 births. That number more than quadruples when a lay midwife delivers a baby at home. The risk increases 7-fold if it's the mother's first baby, the first pregnancy, and approximately 10-fold in pregnancies that are post-dates, beyond 41 weeks. Even though the absolute numbers of adverse outcomes may be small, even one unnecessary maternal or neonatal death each year is unacceptable. Point number 2, from a safety and licensure perspective, the lack of medical training of lay midwives is a major concern. In the past of these hearings, lay midwives have stated they have medications available to treat urgent complications such as hemorrhage. They are administering medications without a medical license. Lay midwives state that patients are low risk, but we know here in Alabama and in frequent studies, this is not the case. Women with various conditions, such as a prior cesarean section, receive care from lay midwives. Lay midwives do not openly distinguish themselves from certified nurse midwives who are registered nurses having a master's level nursing degree, extensive clinical experience, and are licensed by the Alabama Board of Nursing and the Board of Medical Examiners to provide obstetric and practices safely with a defined standard of care and education. Our state struggles with infant mortality. Year after year, we rank among the worst in our nation. In 2012, our state had 519 infant deaths. Infant mortality is a complex issue. Contributing factors include poverty and poor maternal health, complicated by conditions such as obesity, hypertension, and diabetes. Lay midwives performing home deliveries will only worsen this issue. As we speak, a baby lies in the NICU of North Alabama Hospital. The baby was delivered at young, and that every single life is precious and counts.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Mary Ruth?
Carolyn
All right, and the represent yourself or any particular group, or what brings you here with us today?
Myself.
Pardon?
Myself.
All right, but we're just glad to have you. Go ahead.
Members of the committee, representatives from Clinton, thank you for your time. My name is Caroline Maltesta. I'm a mother to 4 children, all born in a hospital. I never gave thought to home birth or midwives until 2 years ago when I was injured during my last birth. As a result of my injury, I spent the better part of 2 years educating myself about what happened to me, about evidence-based maternity care, and about the midwives' model of care. During my 4th birth, I was injured as a result of unnecessary hospital intervention. I would have fared better had I delivered in the backseat of the car on the drive to the hospital. My injury is so severe that I never go a day without pain and am on many strong medications and will be for the rest of my life. After the birth, I asked my OB, how is a woman supposed to achieve a natural physiological birth at this hospital? And his response was, well, they generally have to be aggressive. Based on my personal experience, I can understand why a woman would feel safer birthing at a home than in a hospital. For every negative birth story you hear, I can assure you I could tell a story of a friend who had a horrible hospital birth. But I'm not here to advocate one form of maternity care over another. Rather, say that Alabama women should have the autonomy to choose amongst their options, evidence-based options. But the current criminalization of midwifery in Alabama effectively takes all those options off the table and forces everyone to give birth in a hospital setting. My father has been a practicing physician in Birmingham for the past 34 years, and he testified last month in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee and has submitted a letter to the members of this honorable committee as well. I want to read a quote from a letter that an OBGYN, board-certified OBGYN in his clinic wrote after hearing about what I've been through. She says, ultimately, I believe patient autonomy is important, and in Alabama, loss of choice leads to loss of autonomy. Here, mothers may only choose a high-intervention obstetric setting. Most of these interventions are not evidence-based. It's wrong for MASA to bully women who are pointing out flaws in our current models of care. The rate of home birth is increasing regardless of this bill, and each year we fail to find a legislative solution is another year that Alabama women will be putting themselves and their babies at risk by having home births from untrained professionals. This bill does not authorize lay midwives practice, only certified professional midwives. Please understand that if you do not pass House Bill 601, you will perpetuate a system that increases risk to mothers and babies. Mothers will risk birthing on the side of the road during their run for the border labor. Mothers will birth in Alabama with unregulated midwives who are effectively prohibited from collaborating with doctors and hospitals. Mothers will birth unassisted if they can find no midwives willing to risk prosecution to attend them. I urge you to vote for House Bill 601.
I'm board certified OBGYN practicing private practice in Madison, Alabama. I'm from North Carolina. I moved here 7 months ago, where I worked actually closely with certified nurse midwives and have seen firsthand their value, but only in a hospital setting under physician's supervision. I'm recently relocated, like I said, where I've had the same midwife, a certified professional midwife, a lay midwife, present to my hospital twice over the last 3 months with sick patients. I'm here today, though, to focus on what happened 4 days ago. This certified professional midwife was performing a home birth across the state line in Tennessee. The patient was brought in for heavy vaginal bleeding during labor. She was 42 weeks post-date and reported that her water had been broken for several days, she suspected. Her amniotic fluid contained substantial meconium, meaning the baby had taken that first bowel movement within the womb. The baby on fetal monitoring showed signs of stress and severe infection, prompting the neonatal resuscitation team to be called for this delivery. Shortly after arrival, the baby was delivered vaginally. At delivery, the baby was blue, limp, and never attempted to breathe. The neonatal resuscitation team supported this ill baby and transferred her to the intensive care unit downtown. En route, the baby had seizures and signs of brain damage, poor respiratory effort, and fevers along with other signs of severe infection. After delivery, the mother also showed signs of infection, and the placenta did not deliver spontaneously, both of which can cause life-threatening bleeding in a short amount of time. I've checked on the baby regularly, and she continues to show signs of severe and permanent brain damage, severe infection, even with antibiotics, and poor lung function from meconium aspiration syndrome. I've also followed the mother, who has confided in me that her extreme guilt and regret about her decision for home birth. She feels misled by this midwife about the safety of her home birth and requests my care for her next pregnancy. I feel strongly that if I was given the opportunity, I could have changed this outcome significantly. The standard of care dictates screening for this infection the baby has, called group beta strep, and treating all positive patients prophylactically during labor. This baby would have been delivered sooner than 42 weeks, and continuous fetal monitoring could have shown us signs of fetal stress much sooner, prompting interventions that in this case were definitely indicated. As a mother and an obstetrician, I'm begging you to consider the unborn children without a voice. It's up to us today to ensure that they are offered every intervention possible to be born healthy.
Put that mic down where everybody can hear you.
My name is Brittany Williams. I live in Asheville.
Alabama? You're my neighbor.
I want to thank you all for your time. My husband Jay and I knew before we were even married that we would birth our children at home, attended by a midwife. We made that choice because we did our research and honestly believed it to be the safest way to bring a child into the world. What we didn't know was how difficult that would be to do here. When we found out about the laws concerning midwifery in Alabama, we made the decision to drive to Tennessee to birth. With our first child, this was a challenge, but all went well. With our second, however, my labor was much shorter than anticipated. We birthed our baby in the back of a car in a parking lot. Thankfully, our skilled midwives were present, and again, despite the difficulty, it was a safe, successful birth. We're expecting our third baby in September, and have had to resort to some pretty drastic measures to be able to birth safely with the kind of care we come to expect from a midwife. Since we don't want to repeat what happened with our second child, we will be traveling a few weeks ahead of time to our family's home in Ohio. I'll be seeing a midwife here in Alabama to get prenatal care each month, and I'm coordinating with 2 certified professional midwives in Ohio for them to take over towards the end and be present for the birth. Moving 2 adults, 2 toddlers, and a home business will be no small feat while 36 weeks pregnant, but I'm willing to do it if it means the very best care for my baby and I. I sincerely hope that this situation will change soon. Alabama's law-abiding families need not be forced to choose between birthing hours away or asking their midwife to break the law to get the care they believe to be safest for their children.
I'm Jeff Reichert. I practice law with law firm of Marsh, Reichert & Bryan up in Birmingham. I'm here on behalf of the Alabama Association for Justice this morning. I appreciate you hearing me. I want to say at the outset that on behalf of the Alabama Association for Justice, our issue is not whether or not midwifery should be legalized in the state of Alabama. Our issue is not whether a woman should have the right to use a midwife and birth their child. Those are not our issues. Our issues are simply this. This bill, as written, needs to be taken a hard look at. Because if midwifery is legalized in the state of Alabama, then midwives must be subject to the same level of legal accountability and legal responsibility as other medical professionals already are in this state. And this bill as written does not provide for that at all. In fact, it goes a step further. Not only does it not provide for any measure of legal accountability or responsibility for midwives, but it also goes a step further of providing a level and a measure of immunity to any doctor, nurse, or other medical professional who may be called in the event their care is needed in the birth of this child. And so in effect, this bill as written provides immunity to midwives and any doctor who may become involved in the birth of a child. And we believe that if we are concerned about the ladies who deliver these children, we're concerned about the unborn child and the child once born, there has to be some level of accountability and responsibility up and down that chain. You heard Senator Bussman start this hearing by addressing horror stories on both sides, both at hospitals and in the midwifery setting at home. What we want to make sure of is if this becomes a legalized practice, there's accountability. Should the standard of care not be met, should a level of professionalism not be met, there's got to be accountability and responsibility, and that's what we believe needs to be addressed in this bill should this practice become law.
Johnson. I am an attorney. I'm also the father of two beautiful girls who were delivered by a certified professional midwife. So I speak from both ends. I would suggest to you that accountability is present in our current tort system. Accountability is there. I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the discussion, or whatever my comments are worth. The discussions over the role of the woman, the role of the hospital, the role of the state, all those interests come together in this very critical moment of the birth of the child. I would urge you to send this bill to the full House, let it see the light of day, and garner more public discussion. It's worth it. Sure, this bill offers legal liability protection for hospitals. Sure, this bill requires no state funding. Sure, this bill offers some assurance to the state that women are using certified and qualified midwives. Sure, this bill allows the delivery of vital services to the underserved areas of our state. Sure, 28 other states have some form of midwifery in place. But beyond that, beyond the stats, beyond the research, I want to draw your attention to one key thing. You see, this bill allows a caring and responsible mother the simple joy of determining how to bring her blessing into this world. You see, for many women, welcoming their blessing into the world in their own home is a deeply personal and satisfying experience. No speaker today has denied that this deeply personal experience, women who choose to seek the aid of a midwife exercise great care and concern over every detail of their home birth. Consider this for a moment. A woman who is willing to make the extra effort to find a certified midwife with whom they are comfortable. A woman who makes the effort to purchase all of their birthing supplies, make all